to another episode of Till Mets Do Us Part, live at the Queens Baseball Convention for the second year in a row. John Saponaro, Matt Ibanez. We have two amazing guests joining us here live. We have a lot to talk about. Ibby, if people know the show, they know that before we get into any of the Mets conversation or our guests, I got to ask you, how you feeling, man?
John, I'm feeling pretty good. It's Saturday. The red light's on. Usually it's Wednesdays, but Saturday the red light's on. We are live in living color, actually next to each other, not sharing the screen. It is great to be
Which means your Wi-Fi can't crack out in the middle of the show.
Cannot crack out in the middle of the show. Nothing's going to be frozen today. I'm excited. Always pumped up to be in front of the fans, the Mets fans at the QBC. Fantastic event. We have two fantastic guests today as well. I'm ready to get into all that has gone on with our beloved New York Mets over the last, let's say, 72 hours. So let's get into it.
It has been a lot. These guys are sitting here, so let's not waste any more time before we introduce them. First, over to my left, we have very funny comedian and Queens' own Chris Scopo joining the show. What's up, Chris?
Thank you. Very happy to be here with some mentally ill Met fans like myself. If you're here today, you are here before a mental illness. Just to let you guys know, every one of us has problems, and you know what? Whatever. The best way we solve them, so it's okay.
There we go. And then, to my right, we have co-host of the Mets Pod, the one and only Joe DeMayo. Joe, what's going on, man?
Not much. Happy to be here. Happy to be with you guys. And let's talk some Mets. Because a couple things have happened.
I guess we have to start with the thing that happened today, which is the signing of Jorge Polanco to a 2-year deal, straight 2-year deal, $40 million. Joe, I'm going to start with you because we were talking in the green room a couple minutes ago about this. I also saw your post on Twitter that you like the deal. So what do you like about the deal? What do you like about what he brings to the Mets here over the next 2 years?
Look, Pete Alonso obviously departs earlier this week. The first baseman, he played for the Mets.
Never heard of him.
Don't know.
Polar bear.
Polar what?
Polar bear.
Don't know.
But Polanco, he comes with offensive pedigree. And he had a huge year for Seattle. And you could remember home runs in the playoffs, home runs late in the season, a clutch player, OPS over 800, hit 26 home runs. He's maybe not like the perfect fit when you think of the run prevention type of things if he's going to play somewhere in the field. But if he's a designated hitter that can play some first base, that can play some second base, I think that fits much more the type of designated hitter that David Stearns is looking for, where it's not just your, using Kyle Schwarber as an example, guy that can exclusively DH. He wants some positional versatility there. And Polanco's a guy that can hit in the middle of an order for a contending team, and it's not replacing the guy that we just talked about, but Jorge Polanco is a good baseball player, and I think when we look forward to what this offseason is going to bring, we need to not compare it to those players. We have to judge each move on its own merit, and this move in itself is a good one.
That's something that we've been talking about for the last 2 weeks or so, where, it seems like every move that the Mets have made to this point has been, well, let's see what the next move is. I know you and Connor talked about it on your show, but sometimes you do have to judge a move in a vacuum. Devin Williams in a vacuum, he's a good player. He's going to make the Mets better than they were when the season was over. Now that Edwin Diaz is gone, if you try to compare them, I think it's a fool's errand to do that. I think you have to look at each one of these players and each one of these signings on their own merit, like you said. Ibby, this is a guy, though, who has only played one career game at first base. It did come this past year. So I don't know if, to Joe's point about run prevention, and if this is a guy you're going to plug in to play first base, and your concern was Pete Alonso's not a good defensive first baseman, this guy has no defensive reputation at all at the position. Does that bother you?
I mean, it's a little concerning when the only thing we've been hearing about so much this offseason has been run prevention and we want better defense. And like in that sense, when the news broke before, when we were up here for the State of the Mets, I was a little bit concerned. Like, well, that's more of a middle infielder type. I don't know how this really fits. And then when you hear it's first base DH, I'm like, And then you look more into the numbers, as Joe was just saying. 26 home runs, 27 home runs, 78 RBIs, 150-something hits. kind of replacing, if you will. I know we're not trying to compare, but like the production of DeMayo is kind of replaced here in the sense with what Jorge Polanco is. And clearly, to me, it seems as though, again, to Joe's point, flexibility is big here. We want to be able to move guys around and not just have someone married to one thing, so that's the only thing they can do. If there is one thing I will say, though, is if we're bringing in a Polanco and we want to use him across the infield as somebody, well, then I think we have some other pieces on this team that are not going to be here because they also fit that same description. Be that Jeff McNeil. I know we can work in the outfield, too, but he falls under
Please
this.
don't.
I know. He falls under this. We also have Ivan Mauricio. We have Mark Vientos. We have Luis Angel Acuna. Like, somebody else I feel is going to be going because we're going to keep on bringing in more infielders. That means somebody else has to go out.
Yeah, Chris, when you look at this deal, probably happened when you were leaving your apartment or on your
I
way.
just woke up, actually. This is a normal Mets signing of we don't know. We have no idea. This is how I'm sick and tired of these guarantees like Juan Soto. We're not used to this. We're not used to great players coming here. Met fans were great in the suck. Like when we're not good, we thrive. When we're good, we don't know how to act. We're bragging constantly. We're chirping everybody. I like this signing. It's a typical Mets signing. Everyone's going to hype it up so he's going to get 35 home runs. We know it's going to be 210, 15 home runs. So, we know that's going to happen, guys. I hate to break it to you. It's going to be 15 home runs. Everyone's he gets on base. Yeah, gets on good base. So this is a fun. By the way, I'm very excited to meet Joe DeMayo. I've watched so many prospect highlights at 3 a.m. when I'm like, this Dominican player that I heard about is going to be great. And 2 years later, he signed with the Red Sox. So I don't know what's going on. This is nice. Joe, I've watched so many videos. This guy's the best guy. He's terrible. So thank you for coming out here. This is good.
I'm here to just build you up and give you some confidence of what's
3 a.m. I'm Googling Joe DeMayo. How good is he?
Well,
It's not healthy. I'm not a healthy person. It's
no,
not great.
Brandon, I would recommend sleeping over Googling me at 3 o'clock.
No. I gotta see the highlights of the message. So that's what it is. I
I
watched the Lindor home run today. One more time. Just one more time.
I just think we have to be worried about your search history in general if you're Googling Joe DeMayo at 3 a.m.
It's not porn. It's Joe DeMayo. That's the sad part about my life. It's not like porn. You think porn? No, it's Joe DeMayo. The Mets Up podcast. This podcast. I'm like, I need more Mets stuff.
You know, to each their own, I guess. To each their own as far as that's concerned. Like, Joe, what is the contingency, right? Like, look, we all hope that Polanco doesn't come in here and hit 210 and hit 15 bombs the way Chris just pointed out. That's happened sometimes with players that the Mets will sign in free agency. So if it does wind up playing out that way, and what is the consequence for David Stearns? I mean, we heard before on Baseball Night in New York, Andy Martino said, look, I don't think he's in the hot seat. I don't think this season is going to dictate that. But certainly at some point, there is going to be a consequence if these moves that are unpopular with a lot of Mets fans don't work out.
100%. Look, what David Stearns did, and you almost have to credit him in a way.
I do.
He is putting the onus on himself, and he is showing the fortitude to go ahead and get rid of, as you said, players that the fans love and are really good baseball players. But he's going to build the team his way, and what that plan is, and I think that's part
Nobody
of
knows.
No one knows.
I was just going to say that's part of the frustration, I think, for fans is, okay, what's the plan? Well, we can't exactly tell you, but I assure you, even if I don't know what it is, there is a plan. Will the plan work out? That's always to be determined. But David Stearns is now building the team in his way, and that bullseye is straight up on his back. And if it doesn't work out, like you said, maybe not just 2026, because I don't know if it's necessarily like he had a good year, 2025, in 24, 2025 was not so good. I don't think 2026 is like determining if he has a job or not.
Mm-hmm.
But look, if this is how you're going to build the team, ultimately the results is what's going to carry your future.
Ibby, do you think the signing of Polanco gives, just you personally, I don't want you to speak for anybody else up here, any of the other fans, anybody
Don't
else here.
speak for me.
Don't speak. Don't you dare speak for Joe DeMayo. No, do you think that this, for you, the signing of Polanco, does that help you understand a little bit more of what David Stearns' plan might be? I know I'm putting you on the spot to ask you that question, but
Like I said before, like when the news broke, I was I was more confused because I didn't know how that they were. I didn't think that he would make the move of putting him at first base, like mixing in at DH and across the infield. It's like, okay, I get it, but then I'm like, well, we just got Marcus Semien. And I'm trying to put all this together. It's like, well, where is this time in the field going to come if it's not at first base? Because you're thinking about Brett Beatty being the guy potentially at third base full time. You got Francisco Lindor at shortstop. You just got Marcus Semien from the DeMayo trade to be your Gold Glove second baseman because he still grades out well at the position.
And he plays every day.
He plays every day. So these guys post up for the most part every day. So where does this really fit in? And do I think that it's going to translate at first base? Like, I question it, but as I was talking with Joe before about this, we've seen this with David Stearns before when he was in Milwaukee and he had the likes of Colton Wong and Keston Hiura, and he tested something out, and ultimately it didn't work. It didn't work there. Hiura didn't become the player that thought he was going to be. So that obviously it ended up failing. He's going back to the well again here. Is it going to work? And like Joe just said, like, we got to give it time to see if it's actually going to play out because the results are what's going to matter at the end.
Chris, one of the biggest critiques that a lot of Mets fans have had about David Stearns is that they're unsure if this job, if he is capable of being a big market GM.
What?
Where does your thought process land on just Stearns in general? Look, one good year, one bad year. Jury's out on what this next year is going to be.
That's the one thing that people get mad at. Like, there's 30 of these jobs in the world. That's it. It's the only thing. What is he not going to take the Milwaukee job? Like, no, I'm saving it out for New York. No, he's going to take the Milwaukee job.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everyone's like nervous now because like, oh, he's a small market guy. Like, he wanted to break this team up after 2024. We did well, and we couldn't break the team up yet. So now he's like, oh, just take a wrecking ball for the thing, which he pretty much did. And, you know, now we have to just sit. We have no other choice but to trust the guy. So we can criticize him all he wants, but this is his way. And I pray to God, I have money on it, that it's going to go well. I did make a bet before the year was over that the Mets were going to be good next year. I regret that right now. So I hope it.
Can you give us more details about what this bet is?
I was like,
it's a family show, though.
I was really like, oh, we're going to sign Alonso, we're going to sign Diaz. The two guys we're going to sign Monday and Tuesday. Tuesday and Wednesday were not a good day for my bank account. I'll tell you that. So we just got to hope, and we can criticize him all he wants and get mad, but you have to trust the guy. We got no other choice.
Joe, you and Connor talked about this, and I don't want you to speak for your partner on the Mets pod, but that was a bit of apprehension that he had now, saying, like, is Stearns the right person for the first time? He's starting to feel that way. Maybe he's not the right person exactly for this job. So, just to reiterate what you said on your show, if nobody, if people hadn't had a chance to listen to it yet, like, what was your response to Connor? How do you differ as far as his thought process was?
Yeah, like, the big difference here between being in Milwaukee and New York is there needs to be a semblance of irrationality in how you operate. You don't want to get reckless. Like, I don't think David Stearns needed to go give 7 years to Alonso and 5 years to Diaz and go give 5 years to Framber Valdez while you're at it. Just because they have the money doesn't mean that's the way they should utilize it necessarily. But I think David Stearns really has to prove that he's willing to step outside his comfort zone, because when it comes down to Edwin Diaz, the offer was what the offer was, and there's probably some stuff that we don't know about yet that kind of made everything fall apart. And the Alonso thing, people forget, like, this is what he wanted to give Alonso last year, and it just happened to work out. This time it didn't. He's going to stick to his guns a little bit, and in New York, that can be difficult. If you want to acquire star-level players, it's very hard to acquire them and say, well, we also want to keep that deal to 3 years or less. So it's a tough balance for him, and he needs to eventually grow from that, where it's willing to just be a little more aggressive. At the end of the day, I'm not saying that they should have or shouldn't have. Would it really have killed the Mets if they gave Edwin Diaz a 4-year deal? Probably not. So there's got to be a semblance of irrationality, and Stearns, in a way, I think has looked at almost every single move that he has to feel like he won in the negotiation. That's at least how the perception is, I think.
I think we got to realize, too, that Cohen has not made a dime off the Mets yet.
Yeah.
He's lost money every single year, so Stearns is saying, you're losing money spending $350 million. Why don't we try it my way and see if it works out back? I think that's what he's going to tell Cohen.
Yeah, and look, We know that Cohen is the type of guy who empowers the people that he hires to do the job. He said that on day one when he came in, that he wants to let baseball people make baseball decisions. And look, nothing that they've done has really worked. Part of the problem, maybe I think, is that they've had 5 different people running the baseball operation since Cohen got here. Some of it hit no fault of their own. Guys got in trouble. Guys got fired. Things happen.
Sex offender?
Yeah.
Remember that guy?
Yeah. It's not been good when you have that many different opinions and philosophies. Like, this is not MLB The Show, right? Like, you can't just be like, oh yeah, this guy was running it and he had one draft strategy and he had this. You can't just switch over and be like, okay, now it's going to be great. Stearns is taking over and he's going to hit the ground running. Like, you can't expect that when there's so much change even before he got here.
Right, there's so much carryover from, like you just said, 4 different regimes, 4 different types of philosophies, all different types of players. Like, I know people didn't like when John said this the other day when it was,
People don't like what I say.
well, sometimes you put some stuff out that they don't like it too much. But no, when you have it where you're focusing in on what what David Stearns has done to this point, if you don't like what, I'm losing my spot here.
What a pro.
Sometimes, listen, sometimes you lose your train of thought, It's all good. We'll jump back.
One thing I will say. One thing I will say. More so as a follow, I'll find that point in a minute. But more so to what also Chris was saying before about what this team. I am losing.
Hey man, listen, the Mets do this to you. Sometimes you just
Damn team.
Sometimes the Mets make you upset, and the Mets make you just lose your train of thought.
Sometimes.
A lot of times, it's fair. A lot of times, Joe. One of the things that we were talking about in the green room before, this is something I've been trying to tell people all day long with regards to David Stearns, is the people who are like, well, he's tearing this thing down. He's trading everybody away, and he doesn't care about winning in 2026. To me, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't align with some of the other things that they have done. Look, if you go back to last offseason, you don't sign Juan Soto to the deal that you signed him to and then say, we're going to tear everything down next year, so who cares? You don't go out there and put the target on your back the way that he has. You don't, with a lockout looming potentially in 2027, there is nothing in it for Stearns to tear this thing down. Like you said, he's putting his job, his legacy on the line. So I don't understand the concept that people are saying, well, he's just going to rebuild. It's going to be all the kids. You don't offer Kyle Schwarber the deal that the Mets offered to Kyle Schwarber, $40 million, if you're like, we're going to rebuild. So what's your advice to people who are they're just stuck on the fact that, listen, this is what Stearns is doing. He's tearing everything down. He doesn't care.
Relax. I think we start with just try to relax a little bit. And I understand that this week is an incredibly emotional week, and it was for me. If you listen to the Mets pod, Connor and I had a plan going in. It would be, rant a little bit about what's going on, and then let's end the show kind of bringing people back in. The second part just never happened. And we got through the whole show that way.
Let's don't do plans well.
Yeah.
It's not something we do well in this organization.
But really, it's David Stearns and Steve Cohen want to win. The reality, and this is not Pete Alonso's fault, this is not Edwin Diaz's fault, this is not Brandon Nimmo's fault, the Mets just simply have not won. The Mets won 83 games in 2025, and a lot of that, it's the pitching, it's the bull, it's all different stuff. But the reality here is the Mets have, since Edwin Diaz has been here, they've been in the playoffs twice. Since Pete Alonso has been here, they've been in the playoffs twice. This isn't a team that has had all this success, and they're letting the faces of those franchises go. They're letting some of the faces of a franchise that hasn't succeeded go, and David Stearns now gets the opportunity to build it in his vision, and all we can gather from his vision is, I think, when you listen to his press conferences, if you really listen to David Stearns, he's not BSing us up there. There's some fluff, but he generally tells you what he's thinking. This is a team that's going to be built around pitching and defense. That's the way the 2026 Mets are going to be built. And where we stand today, it's they still need that pitching and that defense. But it's still December 13th, and I think if Diaz signed on Tuesday like he did, and Pete Alonso signed in 3 weeks, we might have a bit of a different feel. And where it comes down to is He wants to win. Cohen wants to win. The Mets are still going to end up one way or another with the second or third highest payroll in baseball, and they just need to clear a bar that was 83 wins in 2025, which everyone in this room would agree was an unacceptable result. So now they just need to clear that bar.
Yeah, I think we've all seen plenty of bad baseball in our Mets fandom lives, but I think adjusted for expectations, last year was one of the most disappointing years that this team has ever put together. So I think when that happens, you can't be afraid to move on. And I know that on the Baseball Night in New York, Andy Martino did make a point that, look, if 2024 doesn't end the way that it did, they probably tear it down a year sooner. But I would also add to the fact 2022, with the 101 win season, they felt like with a different GM, they felt like they had to double down as well. And they go and they replace DeGrom with Justin Verlander. And what happened with 2023? It was an awful year.
If anything, it shows that every time we've tried to run things back or catch lightning in a bottle twice, it fails. To Chris's point before, which I finally remembered, like I don't think David Stearns ever. I truly don't think that front office thought that the 24 season was going to happen the way that it did. I think that they thought they were going to be an okay team, and eventually in 25 he would have been able to do what he's doing right now. But because 24 happened, and no matter what, you would always be in play for a Juan Soto because that's a special player. But ultimately, it was never going to work if you tried to run it back. And ultimately, they tried to do the same thing over again, bring back Saponaro, bring back this guy. We're going to do the same thing all over again because they felt like they had to do it, like they owed it to the fan base. We were so close. Let's do the same thing all over again. But it doesn't work that way. 22 to 23, 24, like all these things, like we have to do what is actually being done right now, and that's rip it to the studs and try to build it a proper way, which David Stearns is finally getting a chance to do, which I think a lot of people during their tenure as a Mets GM, president of baseball ops, whatever you want to call it, have wanted to do, but they never really had the stones to do it because when you have a media that's going to rip you to shreds because they're going to feed off of our energy of being angry, you're putting that giant bullseye on your back, like Joe just said, and he's taking it right now, and everyone's going to keep on dishing it until we actually see the end product. Now, can the actual end product give us the wins that we actually want to see?
Chris, I don't know if you agree with this. I think and I don't want to relitigate the past, but I think if we're all honest with ourselves, the 2022 team was probably not as good as that record would have indicated. There was something amiss. The way that they let the Braves catch them, the way that they were bounced from the playoffs so early by the Padres. And I think, again, we have some immediacy bias about 2024 because of how that season ended. Let's not forget about how that season started. I think both of those teams, even though they had good seasons or finished strong and had a great run, I think if everybody in this room is being honest with themselves, those teams probably weren't as good as we thought they were.
No, not at all. I mean, first of all, 2022 we were good. We were a good team, but like the Braves didn't lose. That was one thing that they did.
They had like a 700 winning percentage in 3 months.
You would watch the Braves won again. They won it 8 in a row, 9 in a row, 4 times. It was crazy how they did. I just think that it just stinks that we were so close to 2020. We had this year, we get Soto, and the team still, the first 2 months of 2025, I was talking a lot of smack. The Yankee fans, I was just chirping in everyone's ear. I've been very quiet lately, but you gotta break it down to like, not the bare bones, but kind of the bare bones. We didn't get on base a lot. We didn't hit at all in the clutch of 2025 at all. For 2024, I don't know what they were doing. Maybe they were watching positivity videos online to pump themselves up.
They say OMG after every game.
And they had that vision board in the clubhouse. That's really what it was.
Yeah, they had vision boards. If they had a witch come in to, I don't know, have something happen, they were just hitting. I never forget. I was watching games like, oh, they're not going to score here. It's 2 outs. And boom, base hit. I was like, oh, man, this never happens for us. Never. And then, I don't know, last year, I don't know what I think the expectations, when we're hot, when we expect to be good, we're not. But when we expect to not be good, we're fantastic. We're fantastic. We thrive. So we thrive in the mediocrity.
That's a Met fan feeling right there in your heart.
I don't like being good. I don't take it well when we're a good team. I don't know how to act.
Joe, wait, like a lot of people, a lot of the talk after the season ended, It was on our podcast. I'm sure it was on your podcast. I'm sure people were having these conversations in their own Mets group chats where something has to change. We have to shake this up. A lot of people said that they wanted kind of what we're having now. And if we're all honest with each other, again, shaking up the team is not just trading Jeff McNeil with 1 year left on his deal. This is shaking up the team. So I think it hurts and it's emotional because these are your guys. These are the jerseys you're wearing. I get that. But again, I think you have to be honest that a lot of people, at least in the back of their mind, maybe wanted something like this. And now that it's here, they're like, oh, but now I don't know what to do.
You want something different until something different happens. And then it happens and you're like, oh. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean Diaz, Alonso, and Nimmo. I meant Jeff McNeil. Right. And you know what I meant? Maybe get Kodai Senga out of here, too. Like, that's the kind of things that people...
Why don't we have those two fight at pay-per-view, and then we'll see who gets out of here. We should do that, yeah.
Let's be
the
careful.
loser has to go. That's the
Let's
thing.
be careful with the fighting in the Mets clubhouse.
Yes. I think we should pay-per-view. Kodai's going to sell money. Him and Lindor, pay-per-view event. Let's see who wins.
But at its core here, look, I know that it's difficult for a lot of people, and you know, as an adult male, I was upset. I have a Pete Alonso jersey. I have an Edwin Diaz jersey. But I'm going to get over it. And now it's a matter of finding what is next and what could take this Mets team to the next level. Does it mean they're going to win the World Series in 2026? I mean, I'm sure if I went on whatever gambling site, the Dodgers are probably minus money to win the World Series if I had to guess. So it's not like you're trying to, and you get in trouble if you do this too. Like, I don't want the Mets to be like, the Dodgers are so good, let me try to match them on paper. So if you try to match them on paper, then you're going to spend a lot of money to quite likely not be as good as the Dodgers.
You can't match that.
Yeah.
You have to go the Blue Jays way.
Yeah, you have
to, that kind of way. That's the only way to beat them right now.
You have to find your own path. And at this point, I just said it, they didn't win with this core, and it hurts, and it stinks, and this week is brutal. But at the end of the day, this could be something that we look back on a year or two from now, and it's like, man, that really stunk, but boy, do I feel really good about where the Mets are now. And I'm going to say it, and this is not going to get the best reaction in the world, I can't think of many heads of baseball operations that I would rather have be doing this than David Stearns.
I agree. I think there's one person I would pick, and he runs the Dodgers.
Yeah.
That's the only person that I would say.
He could do the Dodgers job.
I'd rather have Joe Domingo run it, actually.
If you guys watch Till Mets Do Us Part, when we do this live every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, you know that the live comments are a big part of the show. We are going to take questions from you guys in the audience. So if you want to start to line up over by that microphone on the sidewall with your questions, comments, fun stuff, whatever. For Joe, you can ask him about the prospects because nobody covers Mets prospects better than Joe DeMayo, certainly. So anything like that, if you guys want to start to line up, we'll get to as many as we can with the time that we have. And before we do that, Ibby, look, I hate to get into this he said stuff and all this nonsense, but you know, there was a report from Joel Sherman that came out just a couple minutes before we came up here to do this show.
I didn't know about this.
Yeah, I'll let you take it away.
Is Lindor going? Is that it?
Yeah, no.
Well, no,
there's some speculative stuff and the clubhouse and the relationships, and it's not great, but we do have to talk about it.
Yeah, obviously we saw the thing, a couple months ago, a month and a half ago, with Adam Ottavino saying some things about Brandon Nimmo on his podcast on YouTube, and mentioning how the captain idea for Lindor was something that might have rubbed Brandon Nimmo the wrong way. And now Joel Sherman writes a report claiming that the reason why the Mets did not go forward with the idea of giving Francisco Lindor the captainship or put the C on his chest is because it would have hurt the feelings of Brandon Nimmo.
I think the captainship is kind of overrated.
I agree.
I've been on teams that have played baseball, like, you know who the leaders are. That's about it. Those are
Just go out and do it.
Yeah, just do it. I was very against the captainship, by the way, of the whole thing, because it does put one player higher than the others, where there is leaders in every team. So you should know kind of they are the captains.
Well, let me ask you this from this standpoint then. Do you think that Brandon Nimmo in that situation has a reason to be upset? I mean, he is here longer than Lindor, certainly not the player that Lindor is, but...
I'm not in the locker room, but like from what I've heard, Nimmo's a pretty big leader in the locker room.
Of course, yeah.
So and he is one of the better players on the team. I was thinking more of a co-captainship. You could do that, but, you know, they didn't want to do that, obviously. I mean... people are like, oh, well, I'm a leader too. I don't understand this problem. Why is he the guy? Because he makes the most money. That would upset me a little bit, I think, too. He had a right to be a little upset about that.
I mean, back to ego, but again, like, just go out there and win ball games. Who cares about who's this, who's that? Like, you're paid to do a job. It's a lot of money involved, and I get that there's ego that comes with that, but still, go out there and win games. That's it.
I mean, Joe, just again, you never know what these reports. You take everything with a little bit of a grain of salt here and there. But let's just take it at face value and say that this is true. What is your reaction when you hear this? I mean, again, you and I heard this moments before we came up here, and Brandon Nimmo was here for a long time, and Brandon Nimmo is a leader, and Brandon Nimmo is captain material. But then Francisco Lindor comes along, and he's the better player, and he's the shortstop, and he's the star, and he kind of takes the spotlight. So, you know, did Nimmo have a gripe? I mean,
when you mentioned about the co-captainship, I'm more a fan of the no captainship.
Yeah, you can do that. I was thinking that too.
You don't need captain.
You know who the leaders are in the team. Everyone knows.
100%. And there's multiple leaders. The way a baseball clubhouse is just a different beast. There's cliques, there's things, and that's every team. And at its core, right now, we're talking about clubhouse issues. And I'm not saying there wasn't clubhouse issues in 2025. Clearly, things didn't go well. You know what fixes clubhouse issues? Just winning a whole bunch of baseball games.
Yep.
In 2024, this was largely the same roster than 2025. Just insert Juan Soto and subtract JD Martinez and Jose Iglesias. And don't get me wrong, OMG was fun. I have an OMG t-shirt. Like, everyone was into that whole thing. But Jose Iglesias goes to San Diego, hits 100 points lower in his batting average, and they don't go further. So I think it's just, you win baseball games, the clubhouse is great. You don't, the clubhouse is not so good. And does Brandon Nimmo have a point? Sure, he's longest tenured vet, drafted, developed, whole deal, really good player. But I think truly throughout the year, some players looked at Lindor as a leader, and some players looked at Nimmo as a leader. Some players looked at Starling Marte as a leader, and that's okay. You can have a few people. You don't need one person, because as Chris said, like, that puts a whole lot of onus on Lindor or Nimmo or whoever you name. So the captain thing, let the Yankees do that. The Mets don't need to be naming captains. There's no point in baseball.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. I think we all like the ceremony, right? Like, we all like, oh, we have a guy, and that's our guy, and we can all rally around, and like, good for Lindor, put a C on his whatever.
But they don't put C's on the jersey.
Right.
So
You know what I mean?
like, put a C on the jersey, and then you don't do it.
And you don't do
He
it.
had a C.
Yeah.
He had a C in his jersey.
That's true.
And he didn't want one. Keith reluctantly had the C. They asked him to
Did
do
John
it.
Franco have a C?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so maybe they could. But
Well, I mean, I wasn't alive for this, but I was told that, like, Carter was upset that he wasn't a captain, that they named him captain, right? Is that part of the thing?
I don't
Right,
know.
yeah.
Someone old enough?
This is what my dad told me. He could be lying. I have no idea. Yeah. Yeah, you know, you were there, buddy. You were in front row of the stadium. Look at you. My dad, I love it. I know, it's crazy.
But you take the ceremony aside. You take it's an honor or whatever aside, and you really don't need it. It's not hockey. It's not football. Like, it doesn't matter. And I also think it gets more and more complicated, and it's going to continue to get more and more complicated as salaries continue to grow, because these guys already, as we all do, everybody's got an ego. People have big money. It's going to be so insane. Like, I don't know if we're ever going to see captains again in baseball in 10 years anywhere. I don't think you need it.
You don't need it. And again, I think this all comes back to ego and just being appointed something. But to Joe's point, like, you have so many subsections in a clubhouse, people that hang out with each other, whether it's a language barrier, whether it's I went to school with this guy or what have you, like, whatever it is, like, not one person is meant to carry the load of an entire clubhouse. Like, you can go out there and lead by example, which I think that's what Brandon Nimmo did. He went out there and led by example. He even admitted, like, I'm not the guy that's going to be standing in front of everyone with a rah-rah speech. I go out there, I work hard, I do what I do. That seems like what Lindor was doing as well. Again, like, we as fans like the idea. We like the whole ceremony, as John just said. But in the end, I just want to win ball games. We as fans just want this team to win ball games. I don't care how they do it. Just go do it. I don't care what you want to call somebody else.
We got about 20-ish minutes left. If nobody wants to ask any questions, it's all good. We got plenty to talk about. But if you do, line up over there. We'll get you set up so that you can ask questions to any one of us about whatever's on your mind as far as the New York Mets are concerned. And now people making their way on over. Joe, you and I were talking about the way that the Mets match up with the San Diego Padres. There seems to be a lot of smoke, and maybe that will yield some fire. Preller's a madman. Preller will deal anybody with anybody. He's always going to have those conversations. So just asking you to speculate, not asking you to, just as somebody who knows, especially the Mets prospects really well, what kind of a deal, before we get to our questions, we will in a moment, what kind of deal could you see materializing between the Padres and the Mets that make the Mets better, giving up some prospects? Just something you can kind of, just pull out of your head.
AJ Preller is one of my favorite people in baseball because he's the guy that's in your fantasy football league that texts you every single week, hey, you want to trade? And then you eventually go, yeah, we'll trade. What do you want? You want to swap like an RB2 for a wide receiver too? He's like, no, I want Christian McCaffrey and Jamar Chase. How do we make this happen? Like, that's the kind of guy that AJ Preller is. So I think that adds a level of intrigue as to what can be accomplished. And there was a list, Will Salmon, Ken Rosenthal, and Dennis Lin, who covers the Padres for The Athletic. They put out a piece today where it's like, oh, Mets, they're talking about Nick Pivetta. They're talking about Jeremiah Estrada, Mason Miller, Ramon Laureano, Adrian Morejon, like this whole list of players. What the Padres are looking for, one, they're trying to cut some salary because they're heading into likely a change of ownership in the next year to 2 years. And
you have some of the worst contracts in baseball on that team.
They just didn't care. AJ Preller said, screw it, I'm just giving 10 years to
The
everyone.
owner's on his deathbed. Go, get him. I'm not going to be here. Don't worry about it.
That's my son's problem.
Yeah.
But what the Padres are probably looking for here is controllable starting pitching. And if there is one thing that, and the Mets have quite a great farm system, maybe. You look anywhere, ESPN has them as the best farm system in baseball. If you look at Baseball America or MLB Pipeline, those other places, they're going to be around the top 5. So if it's not...
Joe, I guarantee you everyone in this room has looked at it. We've all looked at the farm system.
We know you've looked at it at 3 a.m.
Yeah,
we know.
everyone has to.
We
Yeah.
know.
And if you check out SNY.TV, I have a top 30 prospect list. Please go ahead and check that out. But when it comes to the pitching, the Mets over the last 2-3 years have really taken significant strides in their pitching development under Eric Jagers, who's the president of pitching, which is a cool title, right? Great title. But he's turned them around. And when you look at these pitchers, it's the Brandon Sproats, the Nolan McLeans, the Jonah Tongs. You go a step lower, the Jack Wenningers, the Jonathan Santucci's, Will Watson. What's been really impressive in how the Mets have done this is they're not using first-round draft picks on pitchers. These are second-round picks, third-round picks, seventh-round picks, eighth-round picks. They're just knowing what they're looking for, and they're one of the most modern pitching organizations in baseball. So the Padres don't really have much pitching in their system, and they don't have a lot of pitching that's, one, healthy, or two, near big league ready. So I think there could be a match where maybe the Mets go and get a Nick Pivetta who helps their rotation now. Maybe they add a Mason Miller or a Jeremiah Estrada to the bullpen, which helps now. Ramon Laureano can maybe be like a corner outfielder for them. So there's a lot of fits, and I could see the Padres banging down the door for Jonah Tong, banging down the door for Brandon Sproat, or someone like that. And the Mets, I'll tell you this, if you want to bang the door down for Nolan McLean, you better have Paul Skeens coming along. So I don't think that one's going to happen, but I would keep an eye on the Mets trying to upgrade their current roster in the rotation and bullpen by maybe utilizing some of that young, controllable pitching.
Yeah, I think that's the route that we're going to see. I think there's a move that David Stearns has not done yet that fills multiple holes maybe in one trade, right? Maybe you can get a Ramon Laureano and a Nick Pivetta and an Estrada in one mega deal, and that checks off 3 boxes, and we're all feeling a bit better. And listen, none of those names, maybe Estrada because he's excellent, but none of those names are super sexy, right? Nick Pivetta is not an ace in reputation, but he's got great stuff.
And if you just go ahead, go on Baseball Reference, wherever you look at stats, look up Freddie Peralta, and then after you do that, digest those numbers, and then type in Nick Pivetta. They had almost the same season, and Freddie Peralta is this perceived frontline ace that you could definitely count on, and Nick Pivetta, to your point, is like, he only really did it for 1 year. But Pivetta's a guy that, under the hood, he's someone I campaigned the Mets to sign last offseason, and they didn't, and maybe they should have. But this is a guy that, under the hood, it always felt like it was there, and he finally put it together in 2025, and maybe this is the time that the Mets get their hands on him.
Maybe. This is the time we're going to take some questions. What's your name? What do you got for us?
Also a prospect player.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
David Slim's already mentioned that Carson Bench is going to play a role on the team this year. Why are we hearing anything about Jet Williams, and do you see anybody else also going to be playing a role on the team?
So I think there's a lot of people that will play a role on the team. I think he's looking at Carson Bench as someone that he considers more big league ready or closer to big league ready. He's mentioned Jet Williams by name at least a couple times over the last week and a half. I think what makes Jet a bit of a unique fit with the Mets is I think he's best in the dirt. Shortstop, second base. He's played some center field, and when I was watching him, it's an adjustment. I don't think he's particularly comfortable out there quite yet. Like, you can see his reads were maybe a tick slow, but he had enough athleticism to make up for it. So in time, I think he can translate to center field. But as far as other names, we saw some of the pitching, right? And there's more to come. I mentioned guys like Jack Wenninger, Jonathan Santucci. Those guys are going to find their way to AAA this year. And Ryan Clifford, Pete Alonso's out the door. First base for the long term is open. And Ryan Clifford has the potential. There's a lot of swing and miss in the game. There's some walks with it. But if you told me Ryan Clifford made his major league debut in the second half this year and made a huge impact from the power standpoint, I would totally buy it. He's a guy that you look at his exit velocities and his ability to pull the ball consistently in the air. Everything about him screams he's going to hit 25 to 30 home runs. Mm-hmm. Now it's just a matter of the strikeout rate. It got a little better this year, but it's still at 28, 29%, and that's not ideal.
Not great, Bob.
Not ideal, but he might be one of your almost three true outcome kind of guys. Strikes out a lot, takes his walks, and hits some homers, and maybe you can deal with
value more, Jet Williams or AJ Ewing?
That's a great question. I think AJ Ewing is the
more cover off the ball, double A.
Yeah, he was awesome. He had a huge breakout season. And one of my regrets was not having him on the top 30 list at the beginning of 2025. It was down to him and a couple guys, and I went against him and look at me. And now he's number 6 in my most recent update, just the biggest breakout of the season.
That's a huge leap.
Yeah, huge. And he tore the cover off the ball. There was a period of time with AJ Ewing this year that he was not striking out at all and stealing a bunch of bases. And I was like, what's he going to do more this year, stolen bases or strikeouts? And it's a game based on bat to ball, on base, pitch recognition skills. He doesn't impact the baseball enough, which I think caps kind of like his ceiling, and Jet can impact the ball a little more. But I think Ewing is a natural at center field, whereas Jet is a bit of a projection for him to figure it out there.
He's more of a Stearns guy, AJ Ewing.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's going to be a plus defensive player.
Do you think Carson Bench can be a legitimate major league center fielder as well?
Yes, but I don't think it's going to be great.
Okay.
The way I look at Carson Bench in center field, and I put it in my top 30 that I spoke about, I think Carson Bench would probably be like Trent Grisham-like in center field, where he...
But without the mustache, right?
I don't know. I'm not going to speak for his face.
It's a bad mustache, man.
Yeah, I don't know if he can pull off the Trent Grisham mustache.
No one can. Trent Grisham can't pull it off.
But I think Bench, from just a skill set standpoint, it's getting there on reads and reactions and jumps rather than just pure athleticism gap to gap, because he's probably like an average to a tick above average athlete rather than that plus guy like an AJ Ewing or Jet Williams, who I think could athletically cover more ground.
What do you got for us?
So first off, I agree with what you guys were saying about the captainship. I think I would have been okay with co-captains, Lindor or Nimmo. But I think the big thing to mention is either every team has a captain or nobody has a captain. This whole I don't understand. Some years we have captains, some years we don't. It just seems kind of arbitrary. You don't need the C to be a leader. And also, sad to see Alonso go, but there was no talk of Alonso ever becoming captain. So it's
Alonso's doing farmers in the clubhouse.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. He's a swag.
So I got 2 questions. One, opening day this year, who's on first? Number 2, in terms of pitching, last year we had so many problems with guys getting pulled after 4 innings, 4 1/3 innings. So how do we handle pitching with just guys just running out of gas and then relying too much on the bullpen? So, yeah.
Let's take the first base one first, and then we'll jump into the pitching conversation because I think it's a bit larger. Maybe just gut reaction. Who do you think is going to be playing first base for the Mets on opening day?
I still feel like that person is not here.
I agree.
I feel like that person's going to be eventually coming in at some point this offseason. But if, you're asking me today, I guess I would have to say Polanco, but I honestly don't think that person is on the team yet.
Do they like Okamoto? Because I've seen his numbers in Japan, and it's a very low strikeout rate.
I know that David Stern spent some time in Japan, and he scouted Munetaka Murakami. I assume he scouted Kazuma Okamoto and Tatsuya Imai, so the 3 big Japanese players coming over. Okamoto feels like a really good fit. I don't know how interested the Mets are, but that's a guy that comes with the defensive pedigree. And I think the first baseman, I agree that it probably is not on the roster. Because when you look at Polanco, it's just like in Moneyball. Hey, can you play first base? Wash, tell them how easy it is.
It's not easy at all.
It's extremely hard. So I think it's difficult right now to see, but I think it's going to be somebody that has defensive capability, whether that is an Okamoto, whether that's a Wilson Contreras, who there's been rumors that the Mets have talked to the Cardinals about him, who had a good defensive season. So as far as first base, I would I'll say Wilson Contreras just because it is a rumor and he fits, I think, the run prevention model that the Mets are looking for.
That's who I would say. I think also Contreras is a good complement to a player like Polanco. I think Polanco can get some reps over there, but I don't think any of us really want him over there every day or mostly every day as a guy who's never played the position or played it once, in his major league career. So I'm with you. I think Contreras would be a really, really, really good fit. I think you can correct me if I'm wrong. If the Mets were going to take on the rest of his deal, which is $50-something million for another couple of years, what is that? Is that like the 15th prospect in this? Did Nick Morabito get it done? Is that too much?
I think it depends kind of like where the market goes, because even though like there could be more teams, the Red Sox supposedly have shown some interest, but I wonder, and this is speculation, this is not sourced information. Could the Mets utilize like one of those excess infielders that Ibby mentioned before? One of those plus some mid-level prospect and call it a day and you get yourself Wilson Contreras? Maybe that is the fit.
Like Ronnie Mauricio and Nick Morabito? Is that too much?
I don't know. It's really tough. The market, I'll say this about trades. I get this all the time. All right, I want this guy. What prospect package makes it work? And my answer always is, I don't know what these teams think about the prospects. Everyone has different evaluations, believe it or not. And maybe they are. I hope they are. They're not going on SNY.TV and looking at my top 30 list and saying that's how we're trading for from the Mets.
That's how AJ Preller does it. He goes exclusively to your list.
My guy AJ Preller. But look, it's difficult to figure out what the trade match is, but I think Wilson Contreras at its core is a really good fit. And as far as the starting pitching goes, that was the second part of the question. They need to get more innings. Frankly, as much as we're talking about who they're going to add to the rotation, they need Sean Manaea to be healthy and pitch deeper into games.
Yes.
They need David Peterson to continue what he did in the first half for an entire season. They need someone like Clay Holmes to grow off of what he did in 2025, which was an awesome first season as a starter. I think it kind of like goes a little undernoticed because of how everything fell apart. But you look at someone like Pivetta, he threw over 170 innings, and there's no reason I think he can't do that again. Outside of that, you're hearing names like Michael King. Can you rely on him for innings? I don't know. But, boy, Michael King reminds me of Nolan McLean. Like, you could have two guys, elite spinners of the baseball, incredible upside. But I do agree that the Mets need to find a way to up the floor of the rotation, not just the ceiling.
That's how I'll answer this in a roundabout way. I think, and you probably have to pay down some of the contract to do this, but if I'm the Mets, I really am looking to trade Kodai Senga. His ace potential upside, his stuff can be so good, but they have to raise the floor. And if you sat here and you told me that he's going to make 5 starts this year, I'd believe you. If you told me he's going to make 25 starts and pitch to a 1.92 ERA, I'd believe you. And I think the Mets need to take some of that ambiguity out. So it's not the answer of how they do it because there's so many other options they can go get. But I think if you can't roll the dice on Michael King and also roster Kodai Senga, in my opinion. I don't think you can do that. You need a surer thing somewhere.
It's one or the other. I think a lot of the reports that came out, though, it seems as though a lot of teams are just very apprehensive about the idea of Kodai Senga. And I don't think that anyone is really giving them what they want. So in the end, they're just going to say, we'll roll the dice. Even though I've said on our show before, I don't think David Stearns likes. Go ahead, second. I don't think he does.
Personally?
I think based off of everything that goes with him as a pitcher, everything that has to go right, the idea of a 6-man rotation, the extra rest, having to wait until you are exactly 100%, even though you're 100%, you're like, yeah, but my mechanics are off. Yeah, but we need you out there. Yeah, but my mechanics are off. Like, I feel as though that there's just been a lot of disconnect, which is why we saw him, end up how he ended up this past season. I think they want to get him out of here, but I don't think they're going to sell low because they probably still feel what you're saying, John. Like, there's talent here. Maybe it's better elsewhere, but I think everyone else is saying, I'm not going to give you what you want or anything of value because you're just dumping the guy. So sure, take this prospect, and they're like, I'll just hold him.
Yeah, look, we've got about 5 minutes left, and then we've got our next panel coming up, which is a big one. So I want to just go around the panel here and just final thoughts. So Chris, I'll start with you. I mean, just what you want to see, what you're hopeful to see, what you think might happen, anywhere that you want to take this in terms of a final thought. Again, it's December 13th. There's a lot of off-season left. There is some kind of a plan out there, so
I want to have games in September that mean something. That's a positive. That's the thing I really look for. I don't want the July 1st to happen. Oh, we're done already. I don't know how many moves they're going to make. I really think that he's going to just not make the big splash, but he might sign a few free agents, have a decent team, maybe a wild card team, but we're not going to be the Phillies, I don't think, out of the division. So I'm thinking maybe we sign a couple players, get a pitcher. That's about it.
that's why we started with you. I was afraid you were going to go a little dark.
Yeah, of course. That's all I do in my life. So, yeah.
Joe, what about you?
I actually think it's going to be incredibly active next month. I think it's going to be.
Don't listen to me, by the way.
That's why we have to sit in between them, because we can't have them.
I think it's going to be a lot of creativity. I'm with you as far as free agency goes. I don't know how much he's going to do and how many big free agent splashes is going to be. But I think there's going to be some creativity in the trade market. We talked about a Padres trade, and that's just one team. And Steve Gelbs was on MLB Network the other day, and after all the things that happened, and he's like, the creativity that David Stearns has, there are trades out there that we have zero clue are happening, are conversations that could come to fruition, and one day we get a Jeff Passanbaum, or we get Andy Martino or John Heyman, whatever insider you get, like those guys will bring something, and I think you're going to see, I would say, a number of trades from David Stearns before the offseason.
Do other GMs hold it over, like the Mets guys? They know we need players, so they're going to ask for more?
I don't know. I think largely value is value, and it depends what they're getting somewhere else. Do I think teams like have it out for the Mets? No, I don't think it's just like, well, you guys stunk, so that means you have to give 2x value on a player. But I do think everyone has their preferences, and if there's a guy like Nick Pivetta or one of these guys we're talking about, I don't think that AJ Preller is like, because you had a bad season, you have to give me more for Nick Pivetta. You just need to make sure you're giving me more for Nick Pivetta than the Boston Red Sox are.
Can Cohen throw in like a few free hands of blackjack at the casino?
That sounds like an IOU.
Yeah, 2030. It's 5 hands of blackjack. Only on.
Ibby, when we started this show in 2021, we talked about, this being a Mets therapy session.
Always.
And
Always.
God knows we need it, right? So is there a way in your final thought to give these lovely folks who are looking back at us, is there a way to give them hope if they're feeling hopeless after the week that we just had?
The only thing I can say is, and I say this on the show constantly, and I know people don't like when I say it, but patience is what you have to have. And I know that a lot of Mets fans are tired of waiting because we haven't seen a championship since '86. We saw how things went in 2000 and 2015 and how these collapses have gone on over the last handful of years as well. But in order to bring it back to what Joe said before, we might look back on this, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. We look back on this as saying, like, that was the beginning of the change that this team needed. And if I can just borrow a line from one of my favorite movies, that being The Dark Knight. The night is darkest just before the dawn, and I promise you the dawn is coming. And I truly believe that David Stearns is the right person to do this job. I'm just asking all my fellow Met fans to remain patient. I do think that, to Joe's point, trades are coming. I don't think he likes the free agents that are out there, which is why you're constantly seeing 2-year deals, 3-year deals, because he does not want to tie himself down to things that are not going to age well with the core piece of his team, which is Juan Soto. So there's going to be moves. I think there's going to be trades. I think he's going to be opportunistic and savvy when it comes to free agency. But I think the trade market is where ultimately things are going to happen. So keep the faith. You're okay.
I think that's very well said, man. You know what? Let's just end it on that one. It was a great way to wrap up the podcast. Thank you, guys. Shout out to our guests. We got comedian Chris Scopo, works all over New York. Go see him perform live. Of course, we have Joe DeMayo, PSL The Flushing on Twitter. Does a great job covering the Mets and, of course, the Mets prospects over on the Mets pod. If you guys want to watch Till Mets From the Park, we are live on YouTube, live on Twitter, live on Substack every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. We go for about 2 hours or so. Thank you, guys. QBC.
Thank you so much.
2025. See you later.